Tonight is a special night. We have a guest from one of our Division I schools on the East Coast. He's a great coach, defensive instructor who's been he's done a lot of different things in baseball, and we're super excited to have Chris Finwood. Chris, I'm glad you're here, and we can't wait to hear more about what's going on in your world. And I know there's a lot of questions that some of the guys might have. So if you guys do have questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to every one of them. So again, welcome. And Chris, I just want to say, hey, thank you for coming out tonight. You had a background there before, but back in your office or your bedroom? Where you at?
Yeah, in the living room.
Okay.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi is a little bit better in here.
I got you.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. No, I'm glad to be here, Romy. It's always good to see your smiling face, buddy.
Well, it's been an interesting couple of months, and I know from time to time, you know, it hasn't been smiles, right? I mean, we've been kind of going stir crazy, but you know, this has been a really good thing for us. We've been able to talk baseball and learn from some guys, and again, this is something for us as coaches. It's great to get to hear people like yourself share some of your experiences and knowledge, and for you guys that don't know Finney, you know, I was recollecting how long ago I met you. You were an assistant at Auburn in 2001, and you recruited one of our players. I don't know if you remember Tug Hewlett.
Oh yeah.
You guys recruited him. We came through there playing in a tournament in Georgia. Got to work out on your field, and from there you went on to and correct me if I miss a stop or two, but you were at Western Kentucky for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then did you go straight to Old Dominion from there?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think at Western, we bought one of the first 5 FungoMan you made.
I think you did.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I remember you telling me you had this great idea. And I said, well, if you could really do that, man, you're gonna make a lot of money, but I don't think you can do it. And you said, well, I think I can. And we bought one of those, and my gosh, you know what a fantastic device that is. I can't even imagine. I was talking with one of our assistants today, and I can't even imagine running a practice without them now. And we currently have 4, just so everybody understands where we're at on that. We're trading in a few for upgraded. We wear them out pretty good, but they allow us to be so much more efficient and such better coaches. And you know, we're thankful for our relationship with Romy and all of the people there at FungoMan. It's been a great partnership, and that was in 2005, maybe 15 years ago. And so, you know, and then obviously going back to your time at Evangel with Tug and the Hewletts, and you know, so we've got almost a 20-year relationship, and you know, I appreciate the friendship, and sometimes our talks aren't really about baseball but life, and I appreciate those too.
Well, yeah, and maybe we'll get into a little bit of that. I have a number of questions, and I know some of the guys may as well. You know, I remember sending Tug Hewlett from Evangel. He went to Auburn and was a second baseman there, and he would tell us about you. And you know, as an infield guy myself, I really I was going, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And he'd show me some of the drills that Finney would show him, and he'd come back and tell me all about, you know, how it was so much better there at Auburn. I know, okay, but give us, you know, one of the biggest things I think any coach at any level is is always trying to figure out is like, what are the attributes as a infielder? What are you looking for when you're evaluating or recruiting or even, you know, trying to make decisions on where you're going to place guys? How do you do that?
Well, that's a great question. That's a whole nother podcast probably, isn't it? These guys that are on here know, and everybody's going to answer that a bit differently, I think. For us, you know, I look at athleticism, you know, from a lower half standpoint, and then, you know, just the raw hands. Does the ball stick in their glove when you're going to watch them? And you can't see that as much just from games. I mean, when you get a kid next to you in a camp and you get, you know, 50 fungos deep with them and you're moving them around and telling them to use one hand and things of that nature, then you can get a little bit better feel. Most of our shortstops, because of that, are going to be high school kids because we can just get a lot more equity built up with them from a rep standpoint. You know, and those are the guys that you need it, and they're fun to develop and those kind of things.
So when they come through a camp, you know, you mentioned that. I know you guys run a lot of camps, and so how much experience does that kid have to have in order for you to say, you know, he's a guy for me? Are you concerned about him being a shortstop all the way through, or because I'm saying that because I know at least two of your guys, I think, were non-shortstops coming in. Is that right?
Yeah, and they were shortstops from a toolbox standpoint. You know, like they had the skill set to play short. Their high school teams just needed them to do everything else: pitch, you know, catch, whatever. And so they were both camp kids. And so what we do with those guys is I tell them, don't worry about it. Like, you do whatever you can to help your high school team win. We're going to play a shortstop when you get here. And so that's what they were, definitely shortstops. And, you know, that rangier kid, maybe a little bit on the wiry side, that you're going to be able to put some weight on in the weight room and you know, with his diet and as he matures, that's the kid that I really look for because, you know, their upside's just better. We got one now who's a junior this year. When the draft rolls around, it may still happen, but, you know, maybe a 4th or 5th rounder. And he was just a skinny kid out of high school from Dayton, Ohio, and wasn't heavily recruited, but he was a camp kid, and the ball stuck in his glove and he could move his feet, and, you know, the arm had to get stronger like most of them, because let's face it, I mean, we're not getting the, you know, the finished product here, so to speak. The pro guys are one of the SEC schools or, you know, ACC schools, somebody like that. So we got to look in the crystal ball a little bit and project these guys. And you have to have an idea of what you're looking for. You know, from a physical standpoint, certainly, but then also from a makeup, you know, standpoint, like how are they going to handle all the things that we throw at them? And it's a lot. I tell guys all the time, like, don't bring me to talk to your high school infield camp, because I think I could screw them up more than I could help them initially. It takes a long time. It takes, you know, hours and hours and reps of me and you on a bucket and us working through some things. And that's just the way it is. And, you know, the kids understand that.
That's really good. You know, that when you talk about athleticism, you know, we were talking about it the other night, and you know, what athleticism, you know, one guy can run really fast. He runs really good in a straight line. You know, is he an athlete? I would say, yeah, he's an athlete, but is that the kind of athleticism we're talking about? And so, you know, maybe is that guy going to translate, or can you translate that into a middle infielder or a guy that could play for you there?
Yeah, it's tough. You know, my late great friend Paul Keys, who our hitting facilities named after, used to call those guys vertical athletes. And I think what he meant by that is like they didn't quite have the proprioception, like the ability to connect everything together. They could run fast in a straight line. They could throw the ball far, but could they break it down and chop their feet up and adjust to a hop that kind of went sideways on them, and do that in a pretty quick amount of time? And that's so the clock becomes part of it too. But I think that agility is probably a good word for it. Maybe not the best word, but just the ability to connect your eyes, hands, feet. Proprioception would be the definition of that, I think. And that's what you need in a guy that's going to play shortstop for you, and probably all the other infield positions as well.
So now the time has, through the years, you've been doing it quite a while now.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
What's that?
Thanks for reminding me of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can tell us how long you've been doing it. That's a good thing, Finny. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
In fact, you have now a resume of kids that have literally done it. And so, I mean, say for a coach who doesn't have that kind of a resume where you can say, well, look, if you'll hang in there with me, I can get you here. I can see it in you. Now you got to trust me. How does that happen? I mean, you've done it a long time, but yet, early on, how did you develop that trust with those kids, and what kind of things did you do?
Well, I think everybody here is going to answer that similarly. The kids got to know you're in the foxhole with them, so to speak. Like, it can't be me against you and you're just going to listen. We got to explain why, and I think this generation of kids really wants to know why more than any other. And so it just takes a lot of time. You got to be willing to put the time in. You got to be willing to sit there and tell them the good things, the bad things, and all the things that are in between. I mean, I can remember we had a freshman third baseman, and he's going to be our shortstop. And he's a fantastic athlete. Like we were just talking about, he's a 6 foot tall, 165-pound kid who was a wide receiver on the football team, just coils and springs, from Charleston, South Carolina, just the right kind of raw. And him and I in the fall would take, 30 minutes every day, the before or after, and just break it down, small things, and you have to be willing to do that if you want these kids to end up being what you think they can be. And it would be something as simple as, no, the glove hinge isn't right. That's not it. Do it again. That's not it. Do it again. That's not that. There it is. Do you feel it? And I think, the good coaches value that feedback, because you want those kids to be able to say, what are you talking about? I didn't feel it. I don't understand. That's okay. That's part of the whole deal. If that upsets you, then you got to look yourself in the mirror a little bit and maybe reevaluate, why you're doing this, because those kids need to feel, safe enough to tell you when it doesn't feel right, not always just when it does. I think that's an important part of the learning process.
Oh, that's really good. You described, you had some terms, wiry, but you could build him into a stronger kid, agility. What other attributes would you say, if you were picking a guy out or trying to develop something in a kid, or as a player, as a defender?
Yeah, aggressive, I think, would be. The other ones aren't necessarily athletic. They're more maybe mindset and innate type things. Aggressive is one. That's why I like kids that played football. They understand aggressiveness, or basketball, just a sport where, you have a little bit more one-on-one touching time. Kids that aren't afraid to make a mistake. I'd much rather have a kid that's going to make a bunch of them just because their instincts take over and they trust them and we can help them figure out, where they go wrong in some of those instances. But I don't want a guy that's sitting back thinking about it too much. Let's just go get it, and we'll figure out how to back you off a little bit when we need to. Because you don't have time. I mean, everybody's got a clock, and good infielders' clock just moves a little bit faster. Like, you see a lot of kids that are fantastic athletes that end up having to go to the outfield, and everybody wonders why. It's their clock. They just can't process the things and connect the things mentally, physically fast enough. 4.3 seconds is not much time, right?
Right.
And 4.2 in a lot of cases, and you have to be able to do all of this quickly. That first read off the bat, the height of the hop, the angle of the hop, the speed of the hop, all those things have to happen fast for you. And the kids that they can't happen fast for, those are the ones that end up getting moved. And that's not even catching the ball. That's just reading it the right way. The rest of the stuff, being able to exchange, being able to get the right grip and throw it accurately and all of those things, that's got to come next. But I think that intangible of being aggressive and being instinctive is something that you have to kind of see. And how do you see it? It's one of those things, like for me, we talk about with our guys, like when you go watch that guy and you watch him make a couple plays on the run or moving, and you kind of go, ooh, it got me a little bit excited about that, right there. Or do you go, ooh, it's a ooh one way or the other, right? It's like, it's just like that's what you want to feel. You want to feel the good ooh. And when you do that, there's a reason. And it's probably based on experience. All the guys on the call today have seen tons and tons of infielders. And, you look at the ones and the guys that are no-brainers, like you just watched them play and you went, ooh, yeah.
So if you were to pick out a drill, a drill or a series of drills, for any, just a generic group of drills that you could pass on to a high school coach or even a youth coach or someone developing a player, what would you put at the top of your list?
Well, the top of the list, and this may sound funny, but it's important, like developing hands. I think the right hand or the throwing hand, if you're left-handed, just gets in the way more than it helps. You catch the baseball with one hand, at the end of the day. And so being confident and being able to catch the ball just with your glove hand is something we start every day. And once you can get that down, getting a good setup position, keeping the glove on the left side of your head, all those things that everybody talks about, getting the hips turned, towards the batter the right way. But at the end of the day, just, roll balls, short hop balls, drop step balls, all those things, being able to catch those balls with one hand and feeling confident and catching them in the right part of your glove, that would be step one for me, because everything else kind of needs to happen after that. And so just the old sit on a bucket and feed the guy, the snake balls, as they call them, that are just hugging the ground, the short hop balls that you got to close it down, the short in between hop balls that you've got to either come get, push through, or drop step and create some space. Those are things that can come next after that. But, getting guys the confidence to play with one hand as you progress through the levels is, I think, of utmost importance, because it just creates so much feel for them to just trust themselves. And once you get the ability for them to trust themselves, then the game really opens up and slows down for them.
That's really good. I'm going to change gears a little bit. You guys started out real well this year. Had
12-4 through 16 games, and we were off to a pretty good start. I was laughing because I was on the way to getting my 500th win, and the coronavirus got us. So I've got to wait till next year, but that's okay. There's more important things than that. Yeah. We had a good getting them all back it's going to be exciting. But college baseball as a whole next year is going to be as good as maybe it's ever been. Unintended consequence of all this. I mean, everybody's got everybody back, and a lot of kids that were maybe going to sign off your team or incoming classes, they're all going to go to school, or a lot of them are, and so it's going to be as talented across the country maybe as it's ever been.
Wow, that's going to be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You had a chance to coach your son.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some dads out there on the call. I think that's one of the most interesting relationships that you can have, is coaching your own son. What were your experience? And I know he's a good kid and he's doing great. He's done with college now and playing, I guess. But how was that? Kind of share your approach to it and how that went.
Yeah, it was personally fantastic. You miss a lot being a college baseball coach, and the opportunity to see him every day for 4 years was just amazing for me. And it's a time that I still cherish. And, Gray was a very average player. He was good enough to play at the Division I level. And, he played some, and sometimes he didn't. And, but he was a good teammate. He loved playing. He loved being a part of the program. And he worked hard, and the guys liked him. So I was proud of him for that. He knew I told him, you're going to come here if you want to play. You're going to redshirt your first year and get bigger, and you're never going to get one at bat because of your last name. I can promise you that. And he got it, and he decided through that he loved baseball and he wanted to coach and stay in the game, and he's doing that now. So I'm proud of that. He was a Dean's List student. He got his degree in 4.5 years and, moved on. So that was neat. I'm still a dad though. Every time he got up to bat, I was living and dying, hoping he would get a hit, just like all the other dads in the world. So that never changed. And, when he'd get a hit, I'd give a little extra way to go, inside more than that. When he struck out or had a bad at bat, I think I felt like every other dad in the country, but I just couldn't show it. But we have a great relationship, and that was a time that you can't get those years back. And like I said, being able to see him every day for 4 years was a blessing.
Yeah, that's great. And you weren't able to coach him as a young player, I would assume.
Right. Yeah. No, I just get to watch, and back then, when he was a younger player, I was an assistant, and so I was on the road all the time. So I missed a lot. And coming up through high school, we were at Western Kentucky. I got to see a little bit more, and then he moved here as a junior to Norfolk when I came to Old Dominion, and got to see him a little bit then. You're not on the road as much as a head coach as you are as an assistant most cases. So that was nice, and he decided to come play for me, and I'm glad he did.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of change going on in our world, in our sport. There's a lot of new ideas. I don't really want to talk about analytics per se. I'd rather talk about beyond that. How is that affecting the college game, and how is it affecting you as you see new players come in, and maybe their understanding of that or expectation, or how is that affecting the game in your world?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think maybe from a pitching standpoint, it's certainly a more technical game than from an offensive or defensive standpoint. And offensively, it's getting that way as well with all the advanced metrics. And, we try to use a combination of both. The thing that I tell our assistants are, gosh, Logan's, 28 and Mike's 35. The thing that I tell them is, the analytics and the data and those things are without question helpful. I mean, you can use the Rapsodo and the Yacker Tech and the TrackMan info to help kids with pitch development. for instance. You can also use it, looking at spin off the bat for swings and things like that. But my fear is that there's a generation of coaches coming up that can't look at a guy and help fix him without that. And I think that's a problem. Like you need to still be able to trust your eyes, still be able to look at a guy and kind of figure out through your experiences, maybe what he's doing wrong reminds you of another guy that you had that, you did this to fix him and it worked, and those kind of things. Now, this generation of kids wants the data, and so you need to be able to use that to connect with them. I think that's important. So I think anybody that's just connected to one or the other is getting left behind nowadays. You need to be a little bit more of a chameleon, so to speak, and a hybrid, and use both, because they're both valuable. The experience of using your eyes and trusting your eyes and your experiences needs to be important, and also being able to utilize the data and help a kid with that is very important as well.
Do you feel like as a coach that you've had to go back to school more and really kind of learn it, or has that always been something you do?
Yeah, no, you definitely had to. I mean, us older guys, like you without a doubt, I lean on Mike and Logan for a lot of that. Like, all right, teach me what we're doing here. What are we looking at? What's this number mean? And they're great about it. And I think conversely, I try to help them, with the eyeball stuff. Like, what are you looking at with this guy? I know what the Rapsodo says, but what do you see? Does it match up? Because a lot of times it should, and that's when you kind of got the guy where you need him, I think.
So I believe it's Steve Adams on the call today. He just asked a question very, very much in line with what you're talking about. Is exit velocity a big factor, or just kids who barrel up baseballs with solid contact? How would you answer that?
Yeah, I think a little of both, because I think the solid contact, leads to a better exit velocity in most cases, because you're hitting it where you want. Now, some of that, you could have a kid that's just not that strong yet, who's making solid contact, and the ball doesn't come off quite the same way. So it's probably a combination of those, and you got to take into effect, what's the kid look like that's hitting that ball. Certainly, we could stand behind the cage and see a bunch of line drives coming off there. But the ball's not going out of the ballpark with player A, and player B, who's just a much more physical kid, is hitting the same line drives, and the ball's leaving the ballpark, and that's got a lot to do with it. It's not just technique, I think, and the overall strength and athleticism leads to exit velocity, certainly.
There's always the thought process of, do you want the kid that just can't get enough of it? Is there a kid that can work too hard? Do you see more? I always wanted that kid who wanted more, but is it to the point now, especially at the Division I level? Is there too much? Can a guy work too hard?
Well, I think that's possible, and maybe it's not just like what the work ethic is, but what he's working on. It drives me crazy to walk into cages and be in there for 20 minutes and seeing in fact, we don't let them, seeing a guy in there hitting in the cages off underhand front toss. I mean, in my opinion, that's a warm-up drill. Because if you can't get past that, if you got to do that for 20 minutes to make yourself feel good, then we got some other things we might need to talk about. And so, we try to talk to them when they first get here about, these are warm-up drills. These are things we can work on with you when we're trying to maybe make a swing adjustment or something like that, because it's very controlled. But once we get past that, we got to start working towards some things that are going to make you a better hitter and help you be more productive at the speed that you have to do it at. And front toss isn't one of those things, underhand front toss. So that's kind. I think guys can get hung up on that, and I think there's some value in creating some drills where they have some failure and look, all right, you didn't get it done in that drill. Now, a lot of guys want to stay in there and hit till they feel good, right? There's some value in maybe not feeling good till tomorrow. All right, what do I got to work on better? Let's chew on that a little bit. As one of my old coaches used to say, put that in your pipe and smoke it overnight, and see how you feel tomorrow. Come back ready to work, and let's figure out how to get to feeling better with this drill. But confidence is such a big part of hitting, and by no means am I saying we want to beat them up all the time, but it also can't be sunshine and lollipops every day. Like, it's a hard deal, and you got to find out who can handle it. And sometimes kicking them out of the cage and saying, nope, suck it up. Maybe come back tomorrow, man. That wasn't getting it done. Like, we got to figure this out. As long as they know you're in there with them, I think that's so very important. I mean, they know you want them to be better than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And, once they realize that, then, they can have some failure and they can work their way back from it. And you're going to help them.
Dan Gerlich just posted a question. He said, how much mental training do you do? And weekly, daily? Talk about that, but also, you kind of alluded to it right there. I'm not sure, who talks about smoking stuff and mental training, but let's hear some more about what you got.
Yeah, we don't do probably as much as a lot of people in terms of that being super structured. The mental stuff that we do is much more one-on-one, I think. Just trying to get an idea for where guys are at. I heard, gosh, it was Andy Lopez a long time ago say, I try to every day. It's easy to talk to the guys that it's going well. It's easy. Hey, how you doing, Johnny? Man, you're 4 for 4 yesterday. Way to go. You try to find the two guys maybe that it's not going well for, and pat them on the butt and ask them the same question. And let's get them feeling a little bit better about themselves today. I think that helps your team be better because the guys that are doing well, they don't really need it. But we also talk about how to handle the success and how to handle failure. And guys tend to gravitate towards that differently just based on their individual personality. Some kids have no problem with it. You don't have to deal with them that much. Some kids can get devastated by a 0 for 4 with 3 punch outs and have a hard time coming back from it. Those are the guys that need your help. And so that's part of getting to know your guys on the team and what their personalities are like and how they're going to be able to handle it. Just so you can have an idea of who's going to need you more that day. They all do. And, I think if we're not going to be interested in helping young people grow, then we ought to probably think about doing something else. At the end of the day, that's what this is about. And, you have to be curious about that all the time. And you also need to help I think the players on the team help with the mental training just by how they interact with each other. Who are your leaders? Like, are you developing those guys? I mean, there's a lot of days I'll just say, hey, Johnny, man, why don't you go, spend a little extra time with Jimmy over there because he's struggling. It always means more coming from your teammates than your coaches, I think. And so we try to guide them maybe a little bit with that and try to help them because college kids don't think about that much. They're worried about their batting average and who they're going out with on Friday night and, that kind of thing. And that's what they should be worried about. That's the way it's supposed to be.
You said something, you need to be curious. I think as long as I've known you, it's been almost every time I've talked to you, either on the phone or in person, you're recommending some kind of a book or a podcast or something that you just picked up. And that curiosity obviously has has really aided you in being able to, and I'm listening to what you're saying. Your mental coaching is more about looking and listening to a player and understanding where he's coming from, but you have to develop a way of understanding. And so to me, when I look at you, when I talk to you and see you interact with others, it's you've got some, you're feeding that mind with something. So maybe you can share some of the things, or maybe a short list of whatever it may be. What, I don't know. You like I said, it could be a book or a podcast. But what are you using to empower leaders and creating that environment? Because I can hear it in your voice. What you're talking.
Yeah. I mean, like the definition of leadership, like you start with that. Like I think it's an ability, like right, the ability to make those around you better and more productive. To me, that's what leadership is. Self-discipline, the ability to get to the next most important thing quickly. Merit, the ability to be curious and involved with what you're doing right now. All those things are things that we talk about daily. I don't like gimmicks and buzzwords and catchphrases. I think there's a place for them and they're valuable, but they just don't have enough meat on the bone for me. Like I'd rather, how do you feel? What did you mean by that? If we got to close the door and grind it out with each other, let's do that. And, there's a lot to be said for having uncomfortable conversations, especially when it needs to change behavior or attitude. I like to laugh a lot. I like to have fun. I like to play. I like our guys to smile every day. They know that. Like that needs to be the culture and the environment that we're involved in. But it takes a while to get there. A couple books that we spend a lot of time, in our program. One's The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. For those of you that know that book, he wrote The Talent Code. The Culture Code's another one. Another one that's really fantastic is Legacy, which is a book about the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team.
I love that one.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. So we pick bits and pieces from these and study them in the fall and things of that nature. Those would be two that are really valuable, I think. All of Malcolm Gladwell's books, I think, are fantastic reads for people to learn about human nature and, how we get along and how we think. His latest one, Talking with Strangers, is a really fantastic book, just about how we perceive things when we're meeting people and talking with them. So those are just a few that we've used in the past. And, that word culture, right? Like that's the most popular word around, especially among sports teams right now. What the heck does it mean? I think it's probably a little bit more about, I like to use the word environment. Like what's your day-to-day look like? What are you doing with these guys every day to set that environment, which that in itself helps create the culture that you're looking for. And the kids need to do it. Like it needs to be something that's passed down. And people much smarter than me have said that for sure through the years. But bringing guys back that have played in your program and letting them explain to the kids how important that jersey was and that experience that they had for that short period of their lives helps those 18-year-olds realize, wow, this is a big deal.
So you can't go to Amazon and order that microwave culture creating tool to go up on campus, and it doesn't work that way?
I don't think so, Romy. I don't think it works at least I'm not smart enough to make it work that way. Well, it takes time and it takes building your guys up, so that they're the stewards of it. And, the one great thing about that book, Legacy, like just leaving the jersey in a better place. There's some pretty cool, they have some pretty cool phrases, but leaving the jersey in a better place than you found it. I think that's something that's pretty special to try to pass on to from your older guys to your younger guys.
Yeah, no, that's really good. You know, Finney, you're obviously just, you can hear it in your voice. It's a lot more than just you know, rolling balls out, or you wouldn't be doing it as long as you've been doing it, and affecting guys in a way that they're going on and doing great things. I know that's valuable to you, but you know, it's still, you know, you're graded, right? You're graded as a coach. You're graded as a you know, there's certain criteria that we're supposed to, as coaches, measure up to. How do you go about sorting that out? You know, as a man, as a coach, how do you sort those kinds of things out in your own mind and go about your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's what the world does, right? They're going to grade you on your wins and losses. But we can't let ourselves, and I tell Logan and Mike this all the time, like, we can't let ourselves be graded on that. Like, we're going to grade ourselves on how we help these young people develop, and what are they going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now? Like, what kind of men are they going to be? What kind of husbands are they going to be? What kind of fathers are they going to be? What kind of employees or bosses are they going to be? That's what matters at the end of the day. You know, how we keep our jobs by winning games. So we have to understand that. Like, that's the harsh reality of it. But
True.
that's not what matters, you know, in the big picture of things. You know, what matters is how we help them develop for the rest of their lives. And through baseball, they get a chance to do that. You know, they get a chance to pick themselves up out of the dirt, brush themselves off, and move forward. And I was talking to a guy that wanted to hire one of our kids yesterday. It's a company, big insurance company. And we were talking about the intangibles of college athletes, and in particular college baseball players. And he said he's got 10 college baseball players working for him. And I said, why? And he said, because they know how to get past an 0 for 4, man. They know how to get past a no. And these other kids, without being devastated, like, just brush yourself off, get up, and move forward to the next one. So I think that's something that in all college athletics maybe, but there's nothing that'll beat you up more than the game of baseball, right? If you let it. And so you've got to learn how to be resilient and learn how to move past it, and, you know, just be more relentless. And I think that's what college baseball does for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, I got a couple more questions I want to get to. One is in terms of just, you know, this whole environment you talked about, what are some of the other things you might do to create a set of values that your kids start to rally around or adopt and bring in to make that environment happen?
Yeah, they have to learn about each other. They have to see each other as people, not just ball players. So one of the things we do every fall to help with that, and I borrowed this from John Gordon. It's just called our Hero Happy Hardship Talk. So every player, and we usually pick, you know, 2 a week. As we go through the whole fall, we'll, you know, get up and talk about who a hero in their life is. And it could be more than one. What a hardship in their life was, and maybe how they overcame it, or maybe they're still trying to overcome it. And then what a really happy time in their life was. And so now they start to see each other as people, not just numbers or pieces or anything. And so do we. It helps us learn more about them. The coaches do it too. And so we kind of figure each other out, and it creates a little bit of a bond. And what they realize is the same thing we all should realize: everybody's going through it. Everybody's going through something, man. You better be willing to give people a break, because everybody's going through a tough time in their life. And you know, whatever your background is spiritually or things of that nature, like, everybody also needs help. And so, you know, we all become a little bit more in tune to wanting to help each other. And so now we just kind of close the bond a little bit more, and now we're going to get a little bit more out of each other because of that. That's just one small thing. We do a lot of those type of deals, but that's one small one that if you wanted to try it and you weren't doing something like that, I think would go a long way.
I like that a lot. You know, that's an incredible thing. Yeah, you're getting into their lives and really that's real stuff, and it translates. And I think that's the thing you're doing is it goes beyond the 3 or 4 years there at Old Dominion, and we'll probably stick with them a lifetime. So I know I remember back in those days, and it's been a long time, but those things you remember them. And I love the fact that you're drawing those things out because, you know, the wins and losses, like you said, they're gonna, yeah, it's fun at the time, and they matter because whatever's in your hands is important. We want to make sure everybody knows that, right? But it goes way beyond that, and I love what you're saying. I got another question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever had to deal with recruits that were rivals? And how do you approach that? I think it's a great question. You know, two guys that come into your program that were rivals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, and especially because we tend to get, you know, a decent number of kids from Tidewater, and so they played against each other. In some cases, travel ball, and also high school, and we've never had an issue with that being a problem. In the recruiting process, look, I don't mind heading off everything. I mean, I can remember times where I'd say, hey, you two guys y'all gonna hate each other when you get here? Because, you know, I know you hate each other right now. And I think one of the things that has happened, and this is, look, there's good and bad for everything. The travel ball culture that we're in, yeah, they're trying to beat each other when they're out there, but I think it's created a little bit more, hey, we're all in this together at the end of the day. The lines are blurred a little bit in terms of the rivalries. They still happen in the high school. There's some schools down here that just can't stand each other. And so, but we've never had a problem with it once they get to Old Dominion because they're all wearing, you know, our jerseys now. So they leave that stuff at the locker room door then.
Well, I appreciate Reagan Hunsacker. He's sent that in. I know. I like that you headed off right away. You know, you call it like it is. You know, get it out in the open. There's no secrets. I mean, you're with each other a long time, a lot of the time, right? And yeah, you might as well just go ahead and get it out in the open. Huh?
Yeah, I think anything that's left unsaid tends to fester. You got to be willing to just rip the Band-Aid off and talk about it. It's not always easy, but it's usually necessary. And, you know, our guys, you know, they laugh and joke because I tell them all the time, you know, this ain't all Mai Tais and Yahtzee. We're gonna have some tough times out here. Y'all might as well get used to it right now, and you're gonna hear about it. But that's okay. I mean, that's what families do, right? We bicker, we fight, and then we hug and move on. And so that's a big part of what we try to instill in them.
Yeah, it's a lot of the things that you're talking about, Coach, are definitely pieces that I mean, we have a business, we have people in our business, and we always talk about it's not about a machine, it's about people. And what you're sharing and doing in your program is, believe me, I'm taking notes, and I know as we develop our programs and do what we do, it's definitely seeing beyond what we're doing and trying to pull it off to make it better in the long run. And I really appreciate what you do. Other thing, maybe one more minute or so. Give us some other things that maybe are bugging you. Like I do also have one other thing. Your best offensive drills that just came through. Let me know what those are. But
okay,
yeah.
I'll tell you exactly what's bugging me first.
Okay.
Not being able to see the boys. I mean, I tell them all the time, one of the things this has really I knew it anyway, but one of the things this has made me acutely aware of is that I need them a lot more than they need me. I miss all of them, man. I tell you, not being able to be around them has been killing me. And, waking up on a Saturday morning and not being able to go to the ballpark and smell the grass and feel the dirt. And people say, well, what do you like about baseball? And I tell them everything. There's nothing about it I don't like. I mean, all of it. And the smells, the sun on your face, and the wind burn at the end of a cold March game, all those things are just wonderful. And so I miss all of that, because of this. And there's nothing to be done about it but complain. And so we try to do the best we can with all of that. Offensive drills, we try to set our hitting drills up more so they're at game speed. We hit a lot on the field. We get our lead up working in the cages. But most of our offensive drills are done in more of a team fashion, where you have some base running involved, you have, a scripted BP set involved, and we're trying to manage, moving runners, driving runs in, things that are going to translate into the game. We also hit a lot of breaking balls. I mean, we use the FungoMan machine. We use some other machines, just trying to hit spin. Because, look, let's face it, that's what gets guys out. I mean, most guys can hit a fastball. So you've got to be able to recognize spin, see it up in the zone, and, hit it if it's up there. And if it's down in the zone, take it. And so you get better at that. You get better by doing it. If all you ever hit is fastballs, you're not going to get that much better hitting breaking balls. So let's hit them a lot.
Do you make those drills competitive, or is it vary, or how does that work?
I don't think there's many things we do that at the end of the day don't qualify as competitive. I think we don't have a bunch of managers running around charting everything, but the guys know who won that round, and I want them that way. I want them to feel like they're competing with each other. There might not be a prize that day. Some days maybe it's, hey, who wins this round? The most line drives or driving the runs in, you don't pick at the end of the round. You get to do that. But a lot of times it's just competing for competing's sake, right? You want to win. And so, I mean, I do that in probably everything, basically. So it's fun to compete.
Yeah.
It's just the way of the world.
We got time for maybe one or two more questions if you guys want to drop them in. There is one from Jeremy Ratner. He said, he asked, how do you find the university for your child when multiple schools commit to so many players that play the same positions? What kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, that's difficult. It's hard right now because that's just the nature of the way recruiting's going, and everybody wants to wear the sweatshirt, right? Like they want to show off the big school on their sweatshirt, and talk about how many chairback seats they got and this and that. And the facilities game is come. My advice to the parents that have players out there is make your decisions on the people rather than the things. I think you're always going to be better off on that. And it's hard to get to know coaches right now. They can't come see you. You can't go visit campuses. And so that I feel bad for the kids that are juniors and seniors right now. This is a tough time for them. It really is. And I've got some good friends who have kids that are juniors and seniors, and I talk to them about this all the time. And it's challenging, but hopefully this is going to keep getting better. But you got to get to know those coaches, because those are the guys that you're going to be spending the next 4 years with, not the nice locker room lounge or the ping pong table in the players area, or how many flat screen TVs they got in the locker room. None of that ends up mattering. None of it. It looks nice, makes you feel good when you're recruiting. those kind of things, but it doesn't help you develop as a player or a person. And so you need to make those decisions on the relationship you think you can have with that coaching staff, not just the head coach, not just the assistant coach, all of them. Like, it's better that way.
Good. So we have this coaches forum. We've been doing this. This is I believe our third one. We're going to have another one on May 28th. I want to invite everyone to just keep in tune with us, and we'll let you know when that next one is. We have a couple of guys I've been talking to that may come on. We got to work out their schedules, but we're definitely really. I tell you, I feel like I'm blessed to know you, Finney, because you're the same. I've known you for a long time. You hadn't changed. You still got that same cool attitude that just kind of you take your pipe at night and you back and smoke that whatever's in there. Hopefully it's all good. But
that was all allegory. There was nothing in that.
Yeah, you really gave us a great perspective, and I appreciate you doing that. It helped a lot of us, and I want to say thanks again. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, let me give you one more shameless plug, my friend. I have enjoyed your friendship, our conversations about baseball, life, everything. I've really enjoyed being a partner and watching the FungoMan company and certainly your products grow through the years. And you talk about a good culture. I mean, I can't ever remember one time, and like I said, it's going on 15 plus years now, where I picked up the phone to ask you a question about something. And I mean, you're the big dog. You're the head honcho there. You're sitting in the big man seat, and it was you called me back. And I know there's people that get paid to do that, but you took the time to do that. That means an awful lot to me. And I don't know how many of these machines I've tried to help you sell as many as I can. But the one thing I tell people, if you don't have one, you need to find a way to get one. And if you have one, you need to find a way to get two. They make your guys better. They do.
Well, if any of y'all have, I appreciate that, and you are very kind. I appreciate that. If you do have a machine, this guy is. I don't know of anybody who uses our product as well and as in multiple versatile ways. If you ever do need a way to use it, I mean, there's some YouTube videos of you. We try to post it, but you really have the and you said it earlier. It's more than just getting a bunch of reps. You have a way of incorporating into your practice, which I literally I marvel at, and that's really what's intended to do. But if you're out there and you're thinking about how to use your machine, if you have one, this is the guy to talk to because he knows how to.
Yeah, and anybody that wants to, Romy's got my number. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. I mean, we try to script it each day, most days. Just to keep it challenging, and same thing, we don't want just hundreds of reps of the same ball where you're not, switching it up and keeping guys on their toes and letting them have a little bit of failure. I mean, once we get the teaching down, then we're gonna ramp up the speed, the hops, the spin, things like that. And the beauty of it is you can do all of that with the FungoMan. So I can't recommend it any higher, man. It's the best thing going out there.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. You've been great tonight, Finney. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you all for being here. We're going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, be sure to email me at FungoMan. You can just send in to info@fungoman.com. We just posted Finney's, I think I did. Let me see if I can. I'm going to post that real quick for you if you want to follow him on Twitter or get a hold of him. But we definitely appreciate you, and thank you all for watching tonight. Look forward to seeing you at another event very soon. Y'all have a great
Romy.